Thanks. First thing, as I'm a first non-Anglo-Saxon speaker, would you forgive me some lingual stumbling so before I start my presentation? Okay, as Linnea mentioned, 17 years ago, I was here at this museum to join IATM conference, International Association of Technical Museum. As I see, looking at your faces, I see two more dinosaurs from that time, Chris and Roger. Welcome, boys. Today, one thing struck my mind because the conference started on 11th of September and 2001. And during my presentation, dramatic news came to us that World Trade Center towers collapsed. So this fact will be in my mind for a very long time. Okay, back to the business. As Selina said, I'm head of exhibit restoration department at the Polish Aviation Museum in Krakow. I would like to tell a bit more about the museum because maybe not of you are familiar what our museum is and what kind of collection we have. And later on, I will turn to our main topic. So this history of the Polish aviation goes back to year 1963, when with the decision of Ministry of Transportation, airbase and airport facilities was turned to be a museum. But history of the place goes well back to end of 19th century. As you may know, Poland was parted for 120 years among three big neighbors, Russia, Prussia, and Austro-Hungarian Empire. The southern part of Poland, which belonged to Galicia, was in the hand of Austro-Hungarian Emperor. So Krakow was one of the important strategic points for Austrian because it was turned to fortress in case Russian would like to invade Vienna. So there was a chain of forts built around the city, and there was, of course, artillery, and as we know, artillery means targeting. So Austrian had the observation balloon detachment. Such were the beginnings. Okay, then aircraft were invented, and this place where the balloon detachment based was turned to aerodrome. When Great War broke off, luckily Krakow was behind the front line, so Russian managed only to go 50 kilometers off Krakow, and then they were stopped by Austrian. In 1918, when Poland regained independence, this place became the first operational aerodrome in Poland. Then, of course, there was no modern facilities, just tents and some wooden shacks. And in 1925 on, the rebuilding or building a new structure started. 5 concrete hangars were built around, and Krakow became a second in size aerodrome in Poland. Up to the outbreak of Second World War, it served both airbase and airport. There was also a place for the Aeroclub aircraft. When Second World War broke off, Luftwaffe took over the place and used it as a transition airfield when they started war with Soviet Union. Okay, when the war ended, again, the place served as both for military airbase and civil airport. Then, because city grew and the big steelwork were built east of Krakow, came a problem with operation, the airfield. So decision came to close the airport and move the base to the west as well as the civil airport. Since 1963, it began function as aviation museum. First name was Museum of Aviation and Astronautics. Then it was the name was changed to Polish Aviation Museum. Okay, today we have about 250 aircrafts altogether, all type of flying machines, which are stored in 5 different objects. This is our newest facility, main building, open for public in 2010. It houses exhibition hall, educational hall, movie cinema, library, archives, and offices. As you see, some data, it cost about 10 million euro. Mostly financing came from European Union. We have to add about 10% of cost. So going inside, here before in front of the building, you have we have small display of our basic trainer TS-11 Iskra, the first jet ever to be designed and produced in Poland. Okay, inside the exhibition hall, we have planes suspended from ceiling. Here we see replicas of pioneer period aircrafts like Otto Lilienthal, hang glider, Blériot 11, the one who first crossed British Channel, and the original Büker Jungmann. Below we can see aerobatic Czech Zlin 50 in a favorite pilot's position. Below, a prototype of Polish short takeoff and landing aircraft, a bit similar to Storch or Westland Lysander. Here we have educational hall, which mostly is turned towards youngsters and kids. So we explain the basic facts on physics, aerodynamic, and etc. We have a hot air balloon, some cross-section engines, and the entire fuselage of aircraft. Also, there's aircraft where people can go in and feel the atmosphere of the cockpit. Next object is main hangar. As I mentioned, 5 hangars of that type were built on the area. This one is the only survivor, and today is listed building, belongs to treated as a national heritage object. It was erected 1930. As you see, it features a kind of cantilever construction. They are 2 big steel arches which hang the entire roof. So inside, we have about more than 3,000 square meter free space. Okay, so what you see here in first in foreground is our most valuable aircraft from the entire collection. The only world survivor of Polish fighter PZL P-11C. This aircraft was presented for the first time in 1934 during Paris Aviation Show. And in that time, it was one of the most advanced technologically machines, because it was all metal monocoque aircraft, featuring some unusual features like drop fuel tank. So it was placed between, here, inside the fuselage. So in case of fire, pilot could release tank. It was dropped down, and then pilot switched to auxiliary fuel tank with enough fuel to find a place to land. Another feature was shock absorbers, which are hidden inside fuselage, so they don't produce so much air drag. Okay, in the background we see Czech Aero 145 ambulance. On the roof we have the entire production of Polish gliders. Once Poland was famous of possessing a leading glider industry. So here we have all of them. Another view in front, two Polish aircraft. The red one is LWD Zuch, and closer, first pre-war all-metal trainer TS-8 Devil. This hangar houses a Great War exhibition. It was built according to original drawings of the hangar which were built in this period around Europe. So the objects we are displaying inside are the original aircraft. They are not replicas. This is one of the 6 existing camels in the world. We have a very exact story on this aircraft. We know that during a war, it shot down 12 aircraft. Another aircraft is the German Roland D6, also the world's sole survivor. Another survivor is the Russian Imperial Navy flying boat M15 Grigorovich. We designed a special type of diorama so it resembles environment the aircraft was operated. Here we have a display called the Store of History. We present here unrestored exhibits. We just fix it a bit, but there is 100% of original substance. The aircraft which stand above the other aircraft is a famous Etrich Taube, built in 1915. Other aircraft are just a part of the aircraft, the fuselages and the wings of German prototype Gist Mewe and AEG Wagner Euler. A fuselage of Antoinette, and the oldest engine in our collection, also engine from Antoinette aircraft, built in 1908, V8 layout, equipped already with 2 injection pump, very advanced for its time. Aircraft engine display. There's about 150 engines on this display. We decided that we made this display because when you put the engine aside the aircraft, the bigger always steal attention. No one pays attention to the smaller one. So we decided to collect all our engine in one room, so you can have the history starting, you know, a period before the Great War up to the, let's say, 60 or 70, talking about the piston engine. Then we have a small jet engine and a rocket engine display as well. NATO versus Warsaw Pact. This barrel-type hangar features both Soviet and NATO equipment used during Cold War. So here we see Italian 104 fighter and Canadian Air Force helicopter. That Buick Rivera is also a part of the story. I will mention it later. Okay, outdoor display. As I mentioned in my brief writings on the problem, we have 25 acres of grass where the aircraft are displayed. Okay, it may look nice, but it produces lots of problems. We have grass cutting every 3-4 weeks, starting beginning of May, ending beginning of October. The problem then comes what to do with this grass cut. You can't throw it to a normal garbage because regulation doesn't allow you to do this. So we have to apply for special containers and load this average load of 20 tons of grass to these containers and then pay for the transportation out. Next problem is that museum is placed between two big parks with trees and bushes. There are also trees on our territory. Problem comes in autumn when the leaves start to fall and stick to aircraft or other objects. They are keeping water or moisture, and you have to sweep it off or use high pressure water. You can't clean it exactly. There's always something, you know, missing. Another thing, when the grass is cut, to go under the aircraft, they have to use this special rotating wires, grass cutters. And they are not doing this precisely, you know. Very often this cutted grass goes to the undercarriage strut and stick to struts, producing corrosion. Okay, so the entire display is divided into smaller sub-display. This one, you see the part of this is so-called the MiG Alley, the title I was given to my presentation. So it consists all the types and subtypes of MiG fighters which were produced in Poland. At the beginning of 1950, Poland bought a license to build MiG-15 fighters. First, the idea was to build Yakovlev 23 straight-wing smaller aircraft, but after success of MiG-15 during Korean conflict, decision came to go to MiG-15. So we built two types of MiG here in Poland. There were MiG-15 and its subversion, which you can see here. And then we start to produce MiG-17, a developed version, a bit bigger, different in layout, but also goes to this MiG Alley collection. So from that angle, you can see that the one in the forefront is the first supersonic fighter, Polish Aviation, Polish Air Force operated MiG-19, twin-engine fighter. There was 2 regiments, and they were responsible for intercepting electronic reconnaissance NATO aircraft off the Baltic Sea, over the Baltic Sea. Okay, here it's another part of MiG Alley, newer MiG-21. So as well, we have almost all subversion of this basic aircraft, starting from F-13 version, which could operate only by daylight, ending on MiG-21 bis. The MiG Alley here also houses another type of Soviet aircraft which were in service with Polish Air Force. Sukhois, fighter bombers. To your right, it's fixed-wing Sukhoi 7. To your left, Sukhoi 22 M4. Sukhoi 7 were the first nuclear carrier. In case of Third World War outbreak, the regiment of Sukhoi 7 was targeting towards North Germany and Denmark, carrying tactical nuclear warheads. The big object contains of Ilyushin-28, known as BEAGLE, and in foreground you can see a Soviet-built DC-3 known as a Lisunov II. It's almost a carbon copy of Dakota, instead of some smaller changes like engine shutter, enabling this aircraft to operate in subarctic climate. Okay, this helicopters display. Here we have Mi-4 transport helicopter. This one is a naval version with a radar and a magneto detector in the back, which was lower in search for submarines. And a row of Mi-2 helicopters. Poland was responsible for production of Mi-2 helicopters for the entire Warsaw Pact. So we have almost all versions. The very interesting one is that one. It's smoke screen layers. You see here, you see the pipes emitting exhaust engine. So it was a fuel oil injection into the hot gases, and as an effect, you have the thick smoke coming out. So it should be used during battles to screen our forces before the enemy could spot us. Okay. The Southeast Asia sub-display. Here we have 2 aircraft which came to Poland in 1975 when communists took over North Vietnam. They sent a pair of aircraft to Poland and to Czechoslovakia to try to convert into Soviet system. Poland was responsible for conversion to armament system. So they brought a A-37 Cessna Dragonfly and F-5. Trials came negative, so what was valuable was taken out by all different aviation research institute, and we saved these shells from being scrapped. So we have two aircraft like this, but the most valuable is famous Republic F-105 Thunder Chief, known as a Polish glider. Those of you who are modelers, making a plastic model, and ever built Thunder Chief, knows that decals of Polish glider are always placed inside the kit. So this aircraft, why it bears such a name? It was flown by then Major Donald Kutyna, whose parents were Poles. After Vietnam conflict, Major turned to colonel, and then he was appointed as a 4-star general. He was ahead of NORAD for 2 years in 1990 till 1992. We got this Thunder Chief from Duxford. Chris was responsible for this deal. Thank you, Chris, again. And we didn't know that it's Polish glider, but by the numbers we found out that this is the very famous machine. So we notified General Donald Kutyna, we have your aircraft. So General was so pleased to know that his aircraft survived that he donated this Buick Rivera 64, which was his personal car, to us. The car still have a 4-star decal on the bumper. The car is still running, so once in a year we are turning the key and you hear the rumble of V8, a real stuff Yankari, so to speak. Okay. This is a display showing some of the NATO aircraft. Here in front we have Mirage and Thunderstrike. On background we have Harrier, also Falkland War veteran, and Sepeka Jaguar, and not visible Link Temco Vought Corsair. So this is a NATO display from the other angle. Okay, DRAKEN or VIGGEN is, I just made the title in Swedish to salute you, because you were the first we cooperated with. Thanks to Swedish Air Force and Flygvapenmuseum, then directed by Sven Scheiderbauer, we acquire DRAKEN and VIGGEN. The green nose belongs to Danish starfighters, so Scandinavian sits on a firm ground. The other go to grass. But even here, you know, the grass is protruding from the concrete, so we have to cut it from time to time. Okay. They flew directly to Krakow. We took the wingtips from DRAKEN and towed it by night. With VIGGEN, there were some problems because you couldn't take the wings off. So we had to take some trees and road marks instead. But it went through successfully, and it made a best PR for the aircraft and for the museum, because we have thousands of viewers looking at our procession from the airbase to our museum. Okay, another display is the trainer aircraft sub-display. So we can see Fuga Magister, Czech L-29 Dolphin, Polish ill-fated I-22 Irida, and to your left, the Polish trainer turboshaft TS-130 Orlik. Okay, another sub-display is the display of agriculture aviation. Poland was a leading country in producing agriculture aircraft and helicopters. So here we have most of the types used by the agriculture aviation. The first plan you see Me Too in agro version, then goes PZL-101 Crow, two types of Raven, Immortal Antonov 2, and the last, very unusual, the only one in the world, biplane, jet-powered. I will talk about this aircraft a bit later. Okay, this is that M15 jet-powered biplane. The idea was to replace Antonov 2 crop duster with this aircraft. This is a Soviet design, but it was produced in factory which once produced MiG-15 and 17s. It was an ill-fated aircraft because the main failure was enormous fuel consumption. The engine was too weak to carry airframe. Anyway, about 180 aircraft were produced and were mostly exported to Soviet Union. In a time when it was first introduced during Paris Air Show, Frenchmen call it Belphegor, which means a phantom of the opera, the ugly creature. And there was lots of jokes on this aircraft. One was that the pest looking out of soil died either of heart attack or of laughter. The real thing why the aircraft wasn't popular in Soviet Union was that flying Antonov 2, two pilots got paid. Here it's a single-seater, so only one got money. Flying Antonov 2, they could sell petrol black to the drivers. Riding on kerosene, there was no interest in Soviet Union because mostly they use gasoline. Well, anyway, this is the one of the last survivors. And yeah, problem faced. So I think they are the same problem which we were talking today. They are the same everywhere, only the patients in Poland are different, but doctors facing with the same problems. So, paint deterioration. Here we have MiG-17 fuel tank, which is made of cellulose dust mixed with formaldehyde resin. As soon as the paint goes off and water starts to drip on it, it's softened. So you can twist it, and it's no use to use them. In a way, it was one-time use drop fuel tank. Okay, paints. We paint this aircraft on the MiG Alley from time to time, and of course we made mistakes. First, we used just a single component nitro base paint, and then we apply a transparent nitro over dry paint, which was a mistake. We should paint wet over wet, then maybe it could stand a bit longer, but you see the effect, then they are separating. It's another example. And recently, we start to use, as it was already mentioned, a modern paintings, two components, which contain hardener. So already some aircraft were painted with this two components paint. The Vietnam War exhibit are painted with these two components paint, and we'll see what happens. So far, after 5 years, they look okay. The radar dome of MiG-17, it's taken apart, it's cracking. So another problem, metal corrosion. All types of MiG 15 and 17 have the special electron blades placed on the trailing edge. You have this blade riveted like this, and you see they are first to corrode, so avoid some danger, you know, that visitor can be, you know, have, you know, the fingers or hand cut it. We have to take it off along the trailing edge. Another things are the bigger panels, which are made also from that alley, and they look like a sieve, so sooner or later they will disappear. Another type of corrosion is that layer corrosion mentioned already. And no matter how deep you will try to remove, the corrosion goes in and in. The worst thing is with MiG-23 swing wing fighter. Here you will see the bottom part of wings, which are already covered with such a flakes of corrosion. And the corrosion goes deeper and deeper, no matter how deep you are scratching, and after 2-3 years, you see the new layer are exposed. Sun influence on plexiglass. This is that ill-fated MiG-23. You see the canopy is almost yellow. On contrast, you have 64 Sukhoi 7. The cockpit looked pristine. MiG-23 was famous of being built out of very poor quality materials. That's why it served very short time with the Polish Air Force. I would like to ask Peter Taraka, is it true that you have another MiG-23 on Intrepid on deck? Yes?
MiG-21 and a MiG-17.
Ah, so you don't have 23. Okay, okay, yeah. Yeah, one story said that there was one aircraft which didn't hold a symmetric line. So the pilot flying had to still keep hand on trim because it was fishtailing a bit. There was also an accident when a Soviet pilot, which based in Poland a couple of years ago, had to bail out because of some technical problems, and aircraft regained stability and start flying south. It flew over West Germany, because it started from DDR, and it flew over Germany, and it was intercepted, and it was they escorted to the border, and then aircraft reached Belgium, and fuel finished, so he hit some village house and killing some people. Anyway, it was unusual accident. Birds, it's another problem. They are nesting mostly on two big size objects. Tupolev 134 commercial, and this ill-fated M15 agriculture Belphegor. Mostly they are pigeons, which makes the most of problems. We tried to secure the inside of the aircraft with covering all possible inlets and outlets, but there still find some holes, inspection hatches to go inside. And the effect you will see soon. First, the wheelbase, no way to secure it. So excrements are protruding. They're working as acid because it contain lime. So almost entire rear fuselage part requires immediate reskinning, taking all this off and apply a new panels of aluminium. Here we see the holes on the empennage of this agriculture M15. You see how through the years it's been hauled through. Okay, human factor. This is relatively a minor problem in our museum. We had a few accidents, like painting graffiti over Tupolev. But talking about, okay, thank you. This Tupolev is famous because it brought ABBA to Poland. It was hired by one of our TV producers. So Lot let them to fly to Sweden and brought ABBA for one concert in 1978. Okay, so here we see effects of human activity over objects. The last accident we had took place under the rigid frame tent, which we use as a restoration tent during summer. Here we have the only 4-engine commercial aircraft ever designed and produced in Poland. Its name is MD-12. It flew in early 60s. So now it's been restored, and 3 prototypes were built. One were cut it to pieces, another crashed due to a flutter failure of empennage. This one was converted to map-making version. That's why they changed the nose section, adding the glass nose and a set of hatches for the camera. Anyway, we are restoring it now. And after the June air show, the group of volunteers, youngsters, which help us to direct visitors' traffic, asked us kindly to make a meeting under the tent. Okay, naively, we allow them. Next morning, we saw what they done. They brought a couple of beer crates with them, drank it, and start to dance on a wing which were restored. As an effect, the wingtips was bended and broken, so was the exhaust pipe for engines. Okay, it delayed the entire restoration process because we have to go back and repair it. The last thing I would like to mention is we are trying to solve some of problems. Here on an example of one of the agriculture aircraft, flaps and ailerons are fabric cover. After a year, you see the holes and the shape they are in. So we decided to replace them with thin aluminum panels. We use 0.0 aluminum and apply them on the structure of over the construction of original flaps. Then we apply textile stripes, and the final effect that for the viewers is that it looks almost like a fabric cover, ailerons or flaps. And so far it works, because after a couple of years they are still in relatively good condition, and the birds can't punch it, or time can destroy it. Okay, so this is a similar situation with Ilyushin 14 passenger plane and rudder of Lisunov Li-2. Also the elevators of Lisunov 2. You see, it's for the average viewer, it makes no difference between fabric cover or aluminium. Okay, thank you for your patience, for attention. Thank you.